All right. Peace, everyone. Thank you to the panelists, everyone who registered to attend. We are excited to have you. And on behalf of ENT, we wanted to say we are thankful that you joined us for International Day of the Midwife. Before we get started, just a little bit of things that'll help the broadcast go more smoothly. If you don't want your image shown, you are free to turn your camera off, but the recording will be shared online. So keep that in mind. If you don't want that up there, then you can still be a part of the conversation, but you don't have to, visually be there. If you are not speaking, please keep your audio muted. It'll just help the conversation to not, help us not talk over each other. You are able to change your settings. If you look in your top right corner, there's a little box that says view. If you just want to see the person that's speaking, you can change that so that you don't have to see the beautiful sea of brown faces. You can just see the person speaking. And feel free to use the chat if you want to use make a comment. If you have a question, we'll be monitoring the chat so that you can get your questions answered at some point throughout the broadcast or the recording. And so today we are going to be honoring the midwives that, have paved the way for us to be here today, for us to be doing birth work today. Some of them, on the call. We are so thankful that y'all chose this selfless work. We want to highlight some of the different kinds of midwives that are out there so that people can get to know more about, what fields they could potentially be going into. And we are going to talk to midwifery students about the various paths they have taken to become midwives and some of their challenges, some of their achievements, and all those things, all those good things. So I hope y'all are ready because I'm excited for this conversation. So we will go to our next slide. So who is ENT? ENT is Earth's Natural Touch, Birth Care and Beyond doulas, and perinatal health advocates. And we work to reduce the risk of undesirable pregnancy and birth outcomes, promote perinatal wellness for parents and children, and promote breastfeeding advocacy to all families while also working to eliminate racial and ethnic disparities in infant and maternal health within undervalued and underrepresented communities. ENT is made up of a fun group of almost 100 interdisciplinary doulas and perinatal health advocates who are either enrolled or have graduated from the Doula Skills Beyond the Basics program. The program is amazing. Share it with people that you know if they are interested in being a doula because it's amazing. Sci Honor loves to incorporate the wisdom and cultural healing practices of our ancestors into our education while we learn to provide culturally relevant services to our clients. That's so important that they can relate to us. The Earth's Natural Touch Birth Care and Beyond program is created for those who are just beginning their journey as birth professionals, as well as those who have been trained by shorter programs but want a more rigorous program with the added benefit of a doula sisterhood. It's amazing to have joined a sisterhood that was already in place, but still like you fit right in. It just was amazing. All right. The next slide tells us that, this is what we're here for. We are here for the International Day of the Midwife, and this year's theme is Invest in Midwives. And what does that, or it's follow the data, invest in midwives. And that means look at the information that's out there. And it's clear that investing in midwives is the way to go because the data says investing in midwives saves lives at the end of the day. It improves health outcomes, it strengthens health systems. And it also, the data also says that increased investment in midwives could save 4.3 million lives every year by averting 67% of maternal deaths, 64% of neonatal deaths, and 65% of stillbirths. So that's pretty big to me. And so I feel like these findings can't be ignored. We have to, continue to do this work. It's imperative that we do. And so to introduce us, the moderators for tonight, my name is Kaya. I am a home birth advocate, maternal health advocate, 4-time home birth mom, and a doula with ENT. I am so thankful to have found this sisterhood, and I'm excited to be one of your moderators. We also have Cynthia Hayes on the call, and she works as an officer in the Family Support Magistrate Court with the state of Connecticut, and also serves as a consultant with Strategic Resolutions, LLC. She's a certified interdisciplinary doula with ENT, and she is a certified lactation counselor and a maternal and infant health specialist. She is also a member of the support group committee with Postpartum Support International. And the founder of ENT, Cy Honor, is our other moderator for tonight, and she is an interdisciplinary doula, childbirth educator. Listen to her resume, y'all. Certified lactation counselor, maternal child health specialist, the JJ Way, and midwifery student attending the Midwives College of Utah, MCU. She's studying to serve families in and out of the hospital setting, and she is the founder of Earth's Natural Touch, which was established in 2001, and she is the creator of the Vigorous Doula Skills Beyond the Basics program. And it is vigorous, it is all of the things. It's a 14-month doula training program, and it's the largest Black-owned training organization in, I'm sorry, I lost my place, in New England, with doulas spread across the country as well as Germany. So now we're going to introduce our panelists, and we will start with Taylor. Sai is going to introduce Taylor. Sai has to unmute herself.
Sorry, y'all. Okay, so Taylor is one of my homies from school, in short, right? So she's like one of my study buddies. She's a certified labor and postpartum doula, a childbirth educator, lactation educator, and placenta specialist. She's currently a student at Midwives College of Utah and former deputy director of the Atlanta Doula Collective nonprofit organization. She's also on the Earth's Natural Touch, Birth Care, and Beyond grief and loss and fertility specialist teams.
And then next we have L'Oreal. She is Connecticut's first Black home birth midwife, and I think that is one of the most amazing things. On her resume. She is passionate. She's a passionate holistic wellness practitioner and midwife serving communities in Connecticut. She has spent the past 7 years studying and practicing as a monitrice and a midwife. Through her studies, she has found her passion in all things related. Her goal is to provide culturally competent and inclusive care for all birthing people from all walks of life. One of her missions is to help shift the poor birthing outcomes for Black and brown birthing people by providing quality care from a deeper space of understanding. And she deeply believes it is a necessity for people to learn how to reconnect with the spiritual and physical aspects of themselves in order to provide and sustain life on Earth. Then we have Ashley. We'll introduce Ashley.
Okay, Ashley Evans is can you hear me? Okay, let me make sure that okay, good. Is the graduate entry pre-specialty in nursing program at Yale School of Nursing to become a certified nurse midwife. She graduated from the George Washington University with a degree in biomedical, biomedical engineering in 2013. After serving 6 years as an officer in the U.S. Navy, Ashley now advocates for increased diversity in nursing education and activism in nursing as she joins the fight for better health for all.
And then we have Paris Marie. Paris Marie earned her BSN from Southern Connecticut State University. She's enjoyed a diverse nursing career of over 7 years. Her experience in travel nursing has carried her across the country and led her to the nurse midwifery path. She's completing her MSN at Frontier Nursing University, and she currently works at the only freestanding birthing center in Connecticut, which is in Danbury, if you're from Connecticut on here, and you need to know that information. Is called the Connecticut Childbirth and Women's Center. And Paris also trained as a doula and perinatal health advocate with Earth's Natural Touch, Birth Care, and Beyond, and graduated last year.
And next we have
Am I next with Lucinda?
We can't hear you, Koya.
Next is Pamela.
There you go. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Next up is Pamela. She has been a certified nurse midwife for 30 years. That's amazing. She currently works on the labor and birth unit at Yale New Haven Hospital. There, she acts as an urgent care practitioner and facilitator in what is essentially, in addition to direct patient care, Her duties include precepting the resident staff, Yale medical students, and nursing students from local universities. And prior to her tenure at Yale, she provided full scope OBGYN care to women in private and community practice for over 20 years. Pamela holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from Wesleyan University and a master's degree in nursing from the Yale University School of Nursing. She has served on various local boards, including a community health center and Planned Parenthood. In 2019, she and a colleague created the Midwife Crisis podcast, addressing issues that affect the care of those born with female anatomy and those who identify as women, and how their concerns intersect with race, culture, gender, and sexuality. And last but not least.
Okay, yes, we have, I'm sorry, I jumped the gun before. I got too excited. We have Lucinda Canty. Dr. Lucinda Canty is a certified nurse midwife and assistant professor of nursing at the University of St. Joseph in West Hartford, Connecticut. She received her BSN from Columbia University and her MSN from Yale University, specializing in nurse midwifery, and her PhD from the University of Connecticut. The title of her dissertation was "It's Not Always Rainbows and Unicorns: The Lived Experience of Severe Maternal Morbidity Among Black Women." Her research interests include the prevention of maternal mortality and severe maternal morbidity, reducing racial and ethnic health disparities in reproductive health, promoting diversity in nursing, and eliminating racism in nursing. She currently provides women's health care at Planned Parenthood of New England, and she currently hosts web discussions, Overdue: Reckoning on Racism in Nursing. She is also our Earth's Natural Touch midwifery consultant and is on the Doulas for Connecticut Coalition, and we just love her.
And we want to give an honorable mention to Sister Oni Muhammad, who is a CNM at the Fairhaven Community Health Center. She's on the Zoom, and we just wanted to acknowledge her presence, another midwife on the call.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
You're welcome. All right, so we are on to our next slide. This is I have a quote from Mama Shafia Monroe, who said, "One of the darkest moments in US history was the systematic eradication of the African-American midwife from her community, resulting in a legacy of birth injustices. Black women's accomplishments and contributions to midwifery cannot be overlooked, like, period. They have been doing this we have been doing this for many generations. And birth work stems from practices and traditions that date back to pre-colonization. So we were doing this. Most women gave birth at home, and the grand midwives assisted them. And this continued until the progressive era, where white physicians and reformers alike voiced concern about both the hygiene and feminism of all midwives. So this is when births started going more towards hospitals, but some lay midwives were still practicing in their communities. The initiative came to replace home births and midwifery with hospital-sanctioned birth and care. And not being able to eradicate midwifery completely, they just decided to police it heavily. And so we have states like my own where CPMs can't practice, but they can practice in all of the neighboring states. And so those are issues that we want to hopefully see done away with. So we are on our next slide. And we wanted to take the opportunity to honor some of the midwives, the ones that
She dragging for y'all,
have
or just
made
me?
it
Yes.
possible for us to be doing the work that we do. And so yeah.
Oh,
Rose.
I think she's frozen.
Is that any better?
Yeah.
Am I frozen?
Hear you now.
Okay, I'm gonna stop my video and see if that helps.
Okay.
I'm gonna stop my video. Can you hear me better?
Yes.
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I'll turn my video off for now.
Oh.
So we wanted to honor the grand midwives that have made it possible for us to do the work that we are doing. And we wanted to do that simply by saying their names and letting their names resonate with us throughout the evening as we have these discussions. And so we will do that now.
Okay. Biddy Mason, Mary Frances Coley, Maud Collin, Oni Lee Logan, Gladys Milton.
Nana Siti Opio, Salama Abdullah Zama, and Arila Smiley.
Claudia Booker, Afua Hassan, and Nkululeko Tayahemba.
So now we have a
Sure.
couple of videos, short videos that will be about the Grand Midwives of Georgia. And it's an amazing watch. So I hope you enjoy this.
Telling our story.
One of the most powerful things that we do.
I can tell my age. So if I'm going to be 71 in a couple of weeks, I would say somewhere between 42 and 44 years of midwifery, 3 generations. For me to stop means I'm not doing what I've been kind of asked to do. I felt like I've been asked to have this journey, and I welcome it through my ancestors.
My profession, I'm a midwife. I really believe I was born to be a midwife. I've quit a few times, and each time I quit, I get a beating until I get back into it. So I have no doubt that this is what I was born to do.
I worked in the projects, right in the trench of everything, and I loved it. And I don't see myself doing anything else. I worked with women that asked me when I came, are you going to stay? Because no one stays here with us. And I said, as long as you want me here, I'll be here to take care of you all.
Nobody had ever captured the stories of the Black midwife ever. Every time I read books or articles about the history of midwifery, it was always referring to the history of the Caucasian midwife.
Due to the fact that they were plenty, Georgia alone had over 4,000 midwives. And when the medical profession was growing in its sense, it was time to remove those midwives. They had a strong reputation of family and culture. They were there as the child and children were growing up. So they were the counselors in the community. They were the caretakers. They were like the bush doctors, and they were the doctors of family lives. And so the medical profession didn't want that, didn't want the competition, even though they didn't get the money the doctors get now, but they were taking over a process that could make more money. So in the mid-40s to the late 40s, going into the 50s, they'd be starting to abolish the grand midwives out of existence by not having the facilities where the midwives would get the paperwork for the clients that they had, and they took it away. So any of those midwives that had grandchildren or children, you know, they would teach them some things to prepare them, even though they had to leave the profession.
We lived with my granny until I was 4. And every day, we went out and we went for a walk. And she would point things out to me. And when I was older and grown and she was long gone, a lot of that stuff started coming back. I became kind of the neighborhood herb lady. And people would bring me their mass fingers and, you know, ask for advice about sore throats and stuff like that.
A lot of people use the phrase, it's a calling, and it's almost like a cliche, but it really is a calling. When it strikes your heart that This is what you want to do. You want to support women in birth. You want to touch their lives. You want to touch the heads of these babies. It's a passion, sister. It is a calling. Oh, there have been thousands of babies. I've caught thousands of babies.
People think it's a glamorous job, you know. But it's so much more than just being there and catching a baby. That's the icing on the cake. That's the treat you get for going through the rest of the stuff.
That Nasra, let's put this in history also. Nasra is the first midwife that has rooted herself here in Georgia. As one era of midwifery was phasing out and a new era was coming in, and so she was like the only Black midwife.
All of us who are of this age bracket are interconnected. Mama Makeda, Mama Saran, Mama Salama, we're Mama City. We're all interconnected. We've caught babies together. We've mentored each other. We've learned from each other.
And we created a collective called Dua Afe. Dua Afe is a Ghanaian adhere symbol that looks like an Afro pick turned upside down, and it translates woman in her wholeness, and that's what we were all made about.
I went back home. I quit my job. I took my pension money. I bought a van. I loaded it up with all this stuff that I had been saving because it was too good to throw away. And I didn't even have sense enough to ask them, could I come? I wrote them a letter, told them I was on my way.
We mentored each other, and we had conferences, and Saran and I and the other senior midwives, we always did presentations for the up-and-coming midwives and supported them. It was just such a wonderful time that we were able to touch the lives of student midwives all over the country.
It's so beautiful to be able to honor them while they are still here. This quote says, despite a long history of midwifery in the Black community, Black women currently represent less than 2% of the nation's reported 15,000 midwives. Relatedly, Black women and infants experience the worst birth outcomes of any racial ethnic cohort in the United States. And this is from Keisha Good's Birthing Blackness in the Body, Black Midwives and Experiential Continuities of Institutional Racism. We wanted to honor and shout out a wonderful accomplishment for us. So you can go to the next slide. And that is having Jenny Joseph's first Black-owned MEEC accredited midwifery school. That is a major accomplishment for Black midwifery, for Black community. So here is some information about her school. If you want to get more information, the website is down at the bottom, and you can research that further. And next, we wanted to share with you some information, some books. I love books. My books are like my babies. And so these are just some resources that you may want to know about, that you can look into further. If you can buy them from a Black-owned bookstore, please do that. keep our dollars circulating. But these are some books about midwives. Listen to Me Good, the story of an Alabama midwife. Why Not Me, the story of Gladys Milton. African-American Midwifery in the South, by Gertrude Jacinta Frazier. And My Bag Was Always Packed, The Life and Times of Virginia Midwife, Claudine. Beyond the Storm, these are books about midwives. Beyond the Storm, which was about Miss Milton, In the Way of Our Grandmothers, Mother Wit, an Alabama Midwife Story, and Delivered by Midwives. Books on the history of midwifery and birth. These are a few that you could look into. Birthing a Slave, Contested Bodies, and The Archaeology of Mothering. And these are books written by midwives that you may want to include in your collection. When Birth Calls, Journey to Birth, and A Black Woman's Guide to Home Birth. And we can't forget the babies, because they are who we do it for. Mama Says Home Birth, Our Home Birth with a Midwife, With Open Hands, a story about Biddy Mason, and The Women Who Called the Babies. So we will now get into our discussion. And our first question for anyone is, can you each, or for all of the panelists, can you each tell us what kind of midwife you are or on the path to becoming and why you chose that route? We can start with Lucinda, since she's the first one I see on my screen.
So currently I provide gynecological care, women's health care. When I started out, I provided full scope practice. One thing that of my own experience, is that I went into spaces where I was the only midwife, which is very challenging. So I definitely recommend for you to go into a practice where there's other midwives there, or that you have a sense of community. I was in the Hartford area. There were only white midwives that I knew of, and I did not feel comfortable. To be honest, I did not feel comfortable with some of them. So it was very isolating. So I practiced about, I want to say 11 years at Hartford Hospital. And even within that, there were times that we were allowed to deliver, we weren't allowed to deliver. And it just became a very toxic environment. So I actually left, and I love GYN care also. I just think that's so important as well. So I actually left because I wanted to have a baby, and I didn't want to be in a toxic environment and pregnant. And someone told me that St. Joseph was looking for someone to do their maternity clinical. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to do it just one semester, and then I'm going to be done. And I just loved it so much. I love working with students. I learned a lot about the challenges that students of color experience, and was able to help students get through, because a lot of them didn't have support. A lot of them do one semester and they were gone. And I didn't even realize how big a problem it was until I started teaching. So anyways, I was gonna do just one semester and just be out of there. And I loved it. So I did that part-time and still did GYN care, still did pregnancy care, but it didn't deliver. I was at Charter Oak Health Center at this time. And then again, found myself in a very toxic environment. So I left there and decided I want to go back to school to get a doctorate degree. And Planned Parenthood was looking for help, and they have been so good to me. They have been so supportive up until this point. But what I love most is that there aren't a lot of Black clinicians there. Probably right now, there's maybe 3, maybe 4 Black nurse practitioners or nurse midwives, and there's only maybe a few Latinx women, whether they're FNP or family nurse practitioners or midwives, very few. And what I found is that the patients need a place where they could feel safe to talk about their most personal things that are going on with them. Because we know there's a lot of issues in the Black community that we don't feel safe talking about. And a lot of it is historical. So I just was, again, was in a space, wasn't sure how long I was gonna be there. And patients coming in saying, can you be the only person that sees me? Or what I love is when patients say, no one ever talked to me about that. They just give me pills and they send me on my way. No one ever talked to me about how to take care of myself. So I just love it. So I do that, but I also do consulting, looking into reasons why Black women are dying. So that's something that's important to me, especially knowing that majority of the cases are preventable, but also just knowing again that women are at their most vulnerable and they're not getting the support that they need or even safety. They go into these spaces thinking that people are going to take, good care of them, and they don't. So anyways, it's just about just still being present. I think now if I ever go back to doing deliveries, I wouldn't go back to the hospital setting. It would definitely be home birth. Just a system that's not set up for us. But I'll talk more about that. So I do a little of everything, but right now I'm just focusing on Well Women Care.
Okay, and to reiterate the questions, just in case anyone has forgotten, can you each tell us what kind of midwife you are or on the path to becoming and why you chose that route? And if you could just take a couple minutes, like 2 minutes to share that. The next person on my screen I see is Pamela.
Peace, everyone. The kind of midwife I am. Actually, I'm a certified nurse midwife, and I took a circuitous route because I was not a nurse when I went to midwifery school. So I don't remember if it was Ashley or there's another person here who is a Gepin student, like a non-nurse graduate. And that was the route that I took when I decided this is what I wanted to do, to take care of women. When I graduated, I did a lot of work. I worked at health, like public health clinics and community health centers. And I did that because I felt like I wanted to take care of women who look like I do and I look like they do, and the Latinx, Black and Latinx population. But after doing that for several years, I realized, okay, this is good, but I need to, someone approached me about going into private practice, and that had never appealed to me. And the reason that I consented to do it was because it occurred to me that I'm not just doing this to take care of us, just, Black and Latinx, Black and brown women, whatever. I need to do it. I think the only way that white people are going to learn what we're about is if they work with someone who knows what we're about. And so, and are cared for by someone who looks like me. And so it wasn't, I didn't go into it like, all in, but I went into it kind of a little trepidation, and it turned out to be great. And it's interesting, I told this before that I've gotten, it doesn't matter who you are. I've had to deal with sort of biases of folks, of course, whites with a Y, forget it. They are, I have to tell them where I went to undergrad and where I went to grad school, where I went to undergrad, and then they lie down. And then where I went to grad school, and then they scooped down. And then it's sort of, what my skills are. And then they, okay, I guess you're okay. And those are some of the struggles that we have in dealing with folks. With the Latinx population, they would say to me, I need to be taken care of by someone who speaks Spanish. And then I say to them, yo soy la única persona que habla español aquí. Entonces, ¿qué quiere hacer? You want to stay or you want to go? And not with so much attitude, but they're just like, oh, and I say, yes, somos de todos colores. We come in all colors. Like, you, come on, people, I want to be here for you. Like, this is something good that you need to get. And then, there are Black folks who kind of, some of them been a bit brainwashed into thinking that doctors are the only way to go and that white doctors are the ones to listen to. And so, and sometimes even male doctors, because people said to me, and these were, my people said to me, are you lesbian? Why are you doing this work? And I said, you don't understand. It doesn't matter anyways, but you don't understand clearly because you wouldn't be asking me that question. And then you have to educate them. I am pretty high tech as midwives go. And that's a decision that I made when I was in school. you know, I had a lot of, well, I was only a Black person in my class, and I had a lot of midwife, you know, co-students who was saying to me, I'm gonna, you know, do my birth work at home, or some were going to rural settings, but some were gonna do it at home. And they said, and why do you wanna learn all this high-tech information? And I said to them, because my people, and let's not even talk about the history of the redlining and the lack of education and the food deserts we live in and all of that stuff, my people have not had the same advantages, so they don't have the same health status. And they are not able to have the luxury sometimes because of all kinds of issues, you know, blood pressure, diabetes, cardiac, all kinds of issues. So does that mean that they don't get to have good care? They don't get to have midwifery care? And that was the subject of my thesis, had to do with diabetes and pregnancy, and making people understand that diabetes was complicating you know, their pregnancy, but pregnancy is a normal milestone in a woman's life. And she shouldn't be made to feel like it's like an annoyance by all of her providers. And so that's kind of, I'll end there. That's kind of how I got into, after all those private practice, got into OB triage, which was the kind of the emergency room and kind of dealing with each fire as they come in. And I'm trying to constantly show the residents and even the privileged nursing staff, this is, you know, you don't cop an attitude because, you know, so-and-so fulana de tal came in and she's talking on her phone and she has her head covered and she, you know, and then you have, that's a bias. Do you understand that that's a bias? And you don't know, she may be making arrangements for her kids. She may be trying to figure out what's going to happen, how they're going to get fed. And so those are now that's kind of the teaching that I'm having to do, not just skill teaching, but also teaching folks to understand who we are and like, don't judge, stop judging folks. So anyways, I'll stop there. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. Next up, I see Paris on my screen. If you could share what kind of midwife you're on the path to becoming and the route that you're taking to get there.
Good evening, everybody. I am a student nurse midwife. I am taking this path particularly because I was already in nursing school when I thought what a midwife was. I was in my early 20s when I learned what a midwife was. And yeah, right now I completed nursing school. I worked for a few years, went back to school maybe 3 years ago, and I'm just taking a slow course toward midwifery because I really want to get more hands-on experience working with women prior to, you know, saying I'm a midwife because I have the credential. I want to actually work with women prior to graduating. And yeah. Did I answer the question?
Yes, you did. And Ashley, yes, you are next. What kind of midwife are you or trying to become in the route you took to get there?
Okay, so I'm gonna take a minute and a half, hold me to it. For those first 15 seconds, I'm going to pay honor to Sayana and Lucinda and Cynthia, because when you get into nurse midwifery, you realize how sacred Black centering and Black safe spaces are. Lucinda said it so much better than I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it a little recklessly. White midwifery can be violent and has like perfected the system of violence. And it can leave you feeling very, very exposed and vulnerable. So this space, this is my first time attending an ENT event, and now I see why it's the largest Black-owned doula collective in New England, because this space is so incredibly valuable. Hopefully that was 15 seconds. I just wanted, the reason why I asked Hoya if I could go next is because I just wanted to say, like, okay, there are 3 types of midwives. You have nurse midwives, which I think everybody so far has said that they are. You have professional midwives or certified professional midwives. And that's someone who is a midwife and taking what's called the NARM exam. which is basically it's the licensing, that's not a good word, the certification exam you need to become a home birth or practicing midwife. And then you have like certified midwives. I've never met one. I don't really know what they are, but apparently they can practice more up here in like the New England area. And it's kind of like a nurse midwife. The difference mainly is the education path. Professional midwives are traditional midwives. They can either apprentice or go to a birth midwifery school, a very intense school, it's 4 years, whereas like the nurse midwifery, you have to be an RN first. It's a graduate degree, so you have to have an undergrad, get your RN, and then go to midwifery school, which is a master's level. I just thought that was really kind of important to say like the different types. And then I am a nurse midwife. I would much rather be a home birth professional midwife, but I very foolishly, and now that I am in this program, I know this to be false. I knew I wanted to go to Congress and yell at folks about how legislation works around home births and Black midwives. And I thought, they're not going to let this little brown face into, Capitol Hill, but maybe they'll let the name Yale into Capitol Hill. And this space is very clear that that's not true, right? Like, when the governor has questions about Black maternity, he doesn't go to anyone at Yale. He goes to Lucinda and, Cynthia and Cy. He goes to the people who are doing the work, and that has nothing to do with the degree. But that's how I ended up at Yale. I thought the degree would take me further than the work. And now I'm learning that it's actually the opposite. The degree really doesn't. And so far in this journey, I think the degree doesn't hold as much weight as you caring enough to, not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. So all that to say, I'm a nurse midwife student at Yale. Hopefully that was a minute and a half.
It's all good. Thank you for sharing, like breaking down the 3 different types of midwives. L'Oreal, I see you next on my screen. So if you could share your path.
Blessings, everyone. I am a home birth midwife here in Connecticut. I originally started school when I was younger. I wanted to become an OB/GYN. I really wanted to help support birthing people in the hospital. So I started off with nursing school and we wanted to go down that whole path until I had my first clinical. And I saw how pathological things were, how sterile the environment was, and how people were treated. It didn't feel good. So I decided then to just leave Connecticut, and I traveled up to Maine, which is like the whitest state ever. And somehow there I became a doula. And then I found midwifery, and it really changed my life. I felt like I was getting back to the basics. I was able to establish community and really help guide people through their pregnancy, really help educate mothers, fathers, grandmothers, sisters, cousins, really the entire family unit. And that was really what did it for me. There is nothing like home birth. It is so incredible. It is so powerful. I, really truly couldn't see myself working like in the hospital setting. I definitely believe that it serves a purpose. And I'm so happy that there are people like us doing the work in the hospital setting. But for me, myself, and my spiritual self, and what I think is necessary for me and the people that I work with, home birth is it. And yeah, I'll leave it at that.
And lastly, Taylor, if you could share.
Hello, I am a CPM student, so a student certified professional midwife at Midwife's College of Utah. I chose to go that route mainly because I knew, like L'Oreal said, like for me, like home birth is it. Like home birth is where my heart is. The idea of practicing in a hospital, like never sat with my spirit in really any way. especially I had my first child in a home, at home. So, you know, that experience just, you know, was everything for me. So yeah, that's how I ended up going into becoming a CPM. I was in Atlanta, where typically it would be more of the just traditional midwife route, but I knew that I was going to be moving back to my home state of California. And here you have to be licensed, and you have to be a CPM that attended a MEEC accredited school to get licensed here in the state of California. So that is a large part of the reason why I chose MCU.
Thank you, everybody, for your answers. I believe, one second. And is there, is there another type of midwife that wasn't mentioned? Or another route mentioned?
No, the CM was mentioned. And I know CMs practice in a few different states, like Ashley said, like kind of like up north. I know Jersey. Sakina Oyuhuru is a CM, I believe. But she was also a nurse prior to becoming a CM in Jersey. Okay. And then of course you just have our underground midwives who are just out there doing the midwife thing. Because it needs to be done. So
right. So next Sai has a question for L'Oreal and Taylor specifically.
Yeah, so for those of you you know, who don't know, we want to see if Taylor and L'Oreal, either one or both, can answer like what is the difference between the CPM route and the PEP route, so that people who are looking into midwifery, like somebody just asked, you know, how do you, like, where do you start? So if you could just explain the differences between those, that would be great.
Yeah, so there are two different ways to become a CPM. You have the MEEC accreditation, and then you have the PEP route. So the MEEC accreditation is where you attend an actual midwifery college. Like I attended Birthwise Midwifery. You all have the College of Midwifery that you're attending. And it's a really intense academic portion followed up by clinicals. And then once you're done your academic portion, you're working in the field underneath a preceptor. And there are certain qualifications and skill sets that you have to acquire in order to be able to graduate. And then with the PEP process, that's basically you working the entire time with a midwife, somebody that's been working in the field for quite some time, and you're learning, you're studying, you're in the field the entirety of your education. And then at the end of both of those, once you have all of your requirements checked off by your preceptor, you then get the opportunity to sit for the NARM exam, which is the national exam, the National American Registry of Midwives. And they're both absolutely amazing. I personally attended the MEEC accredited program, and it was really intense. I would have loved to go the PEP route, where I would be working in the field the entire time. I feel like that's incredibly beneficial. But I believe that they're trying to get rid of that at this point in time. And I feel like that they're starting to phase that out, which is really unfortunate. And I think that also plays a role in Black midwifery. I think that's an incredible problem that we're facing. I don't really agree with it. I don't know, Taylor, if you want to speak on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can think maybe to add to that is, depending with even within MEEC accredited schools, there's a wide range of how the structures of the program will function. Like MCU is a 4-year program. At the end of it, you get a bachelor's degree, and it's also split up in this specific phases of clinical work. So for the first phase, you're doing your phase 1 academic classes as well as phase 1 of your apprenticeship. And then you have a hands-on assessment as well as like a written oral assessment. And then you move on to phase 2, and then you're in phase 2 of clinicals and academics. And then that moves on to phase 3 until you're in the primaries under supervision, and then you graduate. And then there's other programs where it's kind of like, not self-study, but more, like she said, academics, and then your clinicals are kind of separated from that. So even within the MEEC accredited schools, there's different programs. So like if a 4-year program is a lot, there's programs that are shorter and that may fit better in. There are some programs that are in person, some programs are a combination of in person and online. Some like MCU are completely online. So there is a wide range of kind of options within that. I think I also agree that getting rid of the PEP, you know, like that's a huge barrier here in California. That's, you can't get licensed using the PEP route. And that's really unfortunate because, you know, not everybody is either positioned or desires to go to a MEEC accredited school. Does that mean that they are then not equipped to practice as a midwife? Like, you know, so I think with how restrictive midwifery already is, how many barriers there are for Black midwives, period, any kind of educational barriers are going to disproportionately affect us. And that's a huge challenge when we are trying to, for us, open up the profession and open up the floor to allow more of us to get back into midwifery, while also trying to legitimize the profession so that we can be allowed to do the work. And like trying to make those mesh, people are destined to be left out. And it's just really unfortunate. I don't know if that's even relevant to the question.
Well, Taylor, can you talk to us about some of the differences between the midwifery model of care and the medical model of care?
Yeah, so plainly, like the midwifery model is very person focused. We see this person who is pregnant and we are going to care for this person who is pregnant and they're going to have a baby. Whereas the medical model is seeing a pregnancy that is a condition and this person is affected by that condition and they need me to help them manage this condition so that they will be safe. Whereas with midwifery, we see it as inherently safe. We understand that there's a, hold on, sweetheart. Okay, you can watch it, baby. Within midwifery, you know, oh my God.
Midwives are moms.
Right. Yeah, so we see the person who is pregnant, we realize that this is a normal, like someone said earlier, a normal milestone in this person's life that is not inherently a problem. Whereas with the medical model, we see it as a problem and they see themselves as the expert that can solve the problem. And I think that's one of the biggest areas where there is such a huge stark contrast between the two, is because the midwife sees, like, we see our expertise as a tool that we can use to help you navigate your pregnancy and make your decisions for your pregnancy, your birth, and your baby. Whereas within the medical model, it's more so, I know what you need to do. I know what's going to keep your baby safe. And I'm gonna control these things. Like, I don't really need to explain to you, you know, why we don't want to see your blood pressure, you know, get above these areas. Whereas a midwife is going to explain to you, this is the risk of high blood pressure. This is what your blood pressure is. This is what it should be. This is how you can check your blood pressure at home. Here's some things that you can do, you know, whereas you can, you know, get the midwifery model or the medical model and, okay, you have high blood pressure. We are going to need to then do this. You know, there's, no matter what kind of care provider you are, there's going to be like an inherent power imbalance, because this person is coming to you with a need for your knowledge, your expertise, whatever it is that you can, you know, use to care for them, because they want to be safe. They want their baby to be safe. And so a midwife, a good midwife, is really going to use that to step back and bring this person along. Okay, how can I walk them through, you know, midwife means with woman. How can I walk this woman through this safely, you know, so that she is cared for, but not just ignoring the physical health. Yes, we have a responsibility to monitor the physical well-being, but the mental well-being, the spiritual well-being, the well-being of their environment, and the spaces that you create for them when they come see you are just as important. Whereas that's not really focused on in the medical model, because the medical model focuses on pathology, focused on managing conditions, curing problems, you know, curing ailments and all of these things, which is necessary because people have ailments, people have diseases, people have things that need to be cured. We need that. But when you treat every pregnancy and every birth and every pregnant person who comes through you with that lens, so much of what's really important in their care is missed, because you're applying the mindset of a problem to something that's not inherently a problem. And when you do that, you can create problems that otherwise, you know, may not have been around, you know. When we think of like informed consent, you know, shared decision making, these are principles that midwives inherently, these are core principles of the midwifery model of care. Whereas within the medical model, they're kind of side notes, they're afterthoughts. They're things that they know that people may want, but are not necessary for them to do their jobs. Whereas for a midwife to do their job, those things are necessary.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you, Taylor. You really covered the base on that one. I hope everybody heard that.
Yeah, I just want to add something on to that, because what Taylor said is so important, is that we look at the whole woman. We don't just look at her as she's a belly check. And when we look at the medical model, they focus on the disease. They focus on pregnancy like it's a disease. They will walk in a room, they don't even realize there's a person attached to the belly. So they don't even say, hi, how are you? They put their hands on the woman's body. They don't even say their names, because they're so focused on just the belly and getting the baby out. Sometimes they don't even know that there's a woman attached to it. So that's really that one of those main differences that we see in the care, but we see the person. We see a woman, we want to know what's going on in your life. How was your day today? And I think that's the difference, because a belly, anybody could go in and do a blood pressure, but how many people can go in and talk to you like you're a human and tell you what's going on with your body and let you talk back? Because sometimes women talk and nobody's listening to them. I'm not saying that's all cases, but that's a big problem that we have. But that's part of the medical model. They don't learn the bedside manner all the time. If they learn it, they don't always practice it.
And
So
they
I think
aren't,
that's a big
I'm
difference.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. They aren't always comfortable with women of color. And so that's even, they put up a barrier even more so when they're caring for them. When residents are talking to me about, or even nurses about a patient, I will say to them, what's the patient's name? And they can't call it. And then they see like smoke coming out of my ears, because is that something you would tolerate for your sister or wife or mother or partner or whatever that person is who's important to you? Wouldn't be their mother, because you know she's pregnant usually. But yeah, this is like a common courtesy. Start with her name, she's a person, and then tell me what else is going on. And before you ask me what I would do about it, which is invariably the question, what would you do? Well, first I'd learn her name. And then also I will go in and see a patient and come out and they say, I didn't know any of that. I'm not familiar with, she didn't tell me any of that, because you didn't ask. You didn't ask her. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank all of you for those answers. And that's exactly why I have had 4 home births and no hospital births. I can't imagine having to do that. But I know that it is, a place that does have its benefits for some people. Lucinda and L'Oreal, there's so much misunderstanding about what midwives do. What options do people have who are looking for midwifery care for gynecological services? And can you speak to the scope of that care and what good candidates for midwifery can look like?
Laura, do you want to start, or you want me to start? Okay. So as nurse midwives, when it comes to well woman care, we're considered primary care providers. We can do screening, we can do preventative care, we can do like checkups, yearly GYN exams where we don't even have to do the pap smears now every year, but still to have women come in and see what's going on with them, see how they're doing mentally, how they're doing physically. We find that a lot of women have issues with even just their periods or breast issues. So sometimes we address those issues. We do STD screening. We talk about prevention as far as that is concerned as well. We just talk about living healthy. We screen for diabetes. We screen for high blood pressure. So as a midwife, I don't manage those things, but there are midwives that do. But for me, I do mostly screening in that area, but I handle a lot of gynecological problems as well. I like providing education to women who are trying to become pregnant, because that's a whole nother area we don't talk about much, is infertility or women who suffer from miscarriages. So I provide education in that too. And also someone planning to get pregnant, seeing what's going on in their body, what are issues or concerns they have so that we could take care of them before they get pregnant. So it's really like a full range. I start with adolescents and I go all the way up beyond menopause. I go to women, probably the oldest I've seen is in their 80s. So there's a full range of it. And there are midwives that do provide care, newborn care, but that's not my area. I pretty much start with adolescents. And not only, everyone always thinks it's adolescents who are sexually active. It's just adolescents to help them learn about their bodies, help them learn about their periods, ways to eat right so that they can, not have anemia or, address certain issues like that. I hope that answers your question, because I feel like there's so much that I do. So it's hard to kind of sum it up. But I see pretty much everything. Whoever comes through the door, I even see men. I even do screening for STD screening for men, or if they have other issues as well, we can see men as well.
Okay. L'Oreal or Oni, do you have anything to add on to that? Like why there's a misunderstanding about what midwives do?
Yeah, I don't know why there's a misunderstanding. For me, I'm just like, hello, it's obvious. Like we can do all of these things. What the hell? I feel I'm constantly trying to educate people. These are things that we can do. I can come to your home and offer a PAP for you. I can do these STI screenings for you in the comfort of your own home. There's a lot of people who don't go in for their screenings out of embarrassment, uncomfortability. They don't feel space in these spaces that they're walking into. We can provide preconception counseling, well body care, natural family planning, and cycle tracking. Like these are all things that we can really teach people, and it's not medical. There's nothing medical about our bodies. These are all natural things that it's really just learning to educate people. I myself, when I was 15 years old, I didn't have like an OB. I saw a midwife, and I think that's probably why I am the person that I am today. My mom studied women's studies, but for me, it was always just in my reality. So it was surprising to me that this wasn't an option for people. So it's really just getting the word out there and educating people that you can have all of this stuff. You want a thyroid panel? Cool. Let's look over it. Let's figure out and it's empowering for people. It's so empowering for me to communicate with clients and have them learn about their bodies. I've worked with people who have spent years trying to figure out issues that they've had with their womb, and no doctor has been able to help them. And within 2 sessions of me just like actually listening to them, we're able to come to some sort of resolution. And that's really what it is. It's having conversations with people, connecting with their whole body, their spirit, their essence of who they are, their trauma. There's a lot of undoing that we do as birth workers, and there's so much healing in that. And that's not being facilitated in a lot of the spaces that Black bodies are stepping into. So it's really just educating people to get the information out there that like we're here and we can do all of it.
Yes, and just one thing I want to add too is that I realize there's so much that makes us feel like there's something wrong with our bodies. You know, and it's like you go on television, you don't see images of yourself. You go online, you hear all these negative things about what normal things the body should be going through, that so many people are so confused. So we're also there just to provide the education that what you're going through is normal, or what you're experiencing, you're not alone. Because I feel like we're always treated like our bodies, just Black women in this country, treated like our bodies are diseases, or we don't know how to take care of ourselves. And it's just that message is out there, and I want to do what I can so that people know, no, that's not true. You know, you're doing the right thing, and you have to be comfortable with who you are in the body that you have. So I just feel like there's so much education that's needed, and there's so much trauma. I think Ashley put in the chat, she talked about trauma. So there's a lot of trauma in our community, but that's why I like spaces like this. That's why I like Earth's Nostril Touch, because it's like, as Black women, we have to protect each other. We have to stand together because we have everybody coming at us, everybody. So we just have to have these spaces where we're supporting and uplifting each other mentally and physically.
Thank you.
I also wanted to chip in and say one of the benefits of being at like a clinic that I'm at is that I don't wear a white coat. So women come to see me for a pregnancy test or a GYN exam or an STD screen. There's no like us versus you or me versus that. We're all one. I'm connecting with you woman to woman, and there's no barrier. And I could be in your shoes just as well as you can be in my shoes. And I think that is very helpful, because a lot of times when it's a doctor-patient relationship, it isn't the sense of like, we're with you, and a midwife is with women. And I think it's just important for connections to happen. And that is easier with midwives because women identify with us. I look like they look. I may not speak Spanish fluently. I stumble through it. But you know, those barriers are broken down because we can connect on a personal level. And when you can do that, it opens up for better dialogue and for teaching back and forth. It's more collaborative. And I just think that's really important. It's one of the things that will help diminish the barriers that are there. And so, you know, so that's really important. I wanted to say that.
Thank you for that, Oni. I'm glad you were able to jump in on that.
I just want to mention that I've seen Oni in practice, and the way she is speaking right now is the way she speaks regardless of the crisis that's going on. And who would not want to be cared for by someone like that? She is just so even and calm, and basically just kind of reassures patients that she's going to take care of them. And yes, you want her there as opposed to, you know, I don't know, some 27-year-old white little man or whatever. I just wanted to throw that out there.
You were one of my mentors, even though you didn't know it. Thank you.
That actually, I mean, we're supposed to ask a different question, but I think that brings us kind of right into another question. So I'm just going to go ahead and ask it to PR and L'Oreal. As midwives, the one in the hospital space, working with those emergencies, and one at home, do you experience any nerves like before or during a labor? And how do you deal with that? Like if there's an emergency, like how do you deal with it emotionally? L'Oreal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She can, it doesn't matter.
Either one of y'all, yeah.
No, I'm not really. And Oni can kind of attest to this too. I'm not too, I kind of go over in my head what the possible emergencies could be. And I know what the steps are to kind of remedy them. So if anything, I'm worried about something happening to someone, and because I'm in a small space and I'm not involved and I see a crime being committed, basically. I'm sort of exaggerating when I say crime, but just like the care that they're receiving or the way they're being treated or that kind of thing. So that probably emotionally gets me more than just the crisis itself. Like I'm kind of type A with that stuff. So I even when I was in school, I just always wanted to take the complicated situations and just want to learn so I could be ready. I worked a little bit on the reservation in South Dakota on Pine Ridge, and the midwives basically, and some family practice docs were doing, the work there. And so you have to know what to do when these situations come up, and there's not going to be sometimes a physician who, certainly not one who knows more than you, because the midwife knows more than the family practice, but there might not be a GYN or an OB or something like that for some of the emergencies. So you kind of get in that mode of knowing what's going to happen, what to do, what the possibilities are. I learn something every day, but I'm just saying that I try to be prepared, and then when it happens, I'm ready. And if it doesn't, then all the better. Yeah, but that's just the way people are treated. That probably bothers me more and gets me more anxious about situations.
I can see how that's possible. L'Oreal, what about you as a home birth midwife?
Yeah, in the home birth setting, I would say my nerves don't necessarily come from any potential birth emergencies, right? Like that's what I'm trained in. That's what I feel like I'm proficient in. That's why I practice my skills regularly. So I feel ready to jump on anything. And I don't know if it's because I'm a Capricorn, but I'm just like a problem fixer. So I'm like, let's like, I'm focused and I'm like, all right, let's get it. Let's do this, But my nerves come from working with incompetent people and not feeling safe as a practitioner with other people and the care that they provide. So I would say mostly like in my schooling, as you're learning and training to become a midwife, you're building your intuition, your medical intuition, your connection, and that knowing. And, as a student, sometimes that's subdued by your preceptors or the people that you're working under, because their own egos are involved. That's what makes me nervous is truly working with other people who either tend to push the envelope or aren't picking up on the signs or just aren't ready. But for me, like if there's a birth emergency, I'm prepared for it because we're listening to baby's communication. We're listening to the birthing person's communication. I'm listening to the noises that they're making. I'm reading their body language. I'm looking at their partner. Like we're prepared to do all of these things. And that's why home birth works, right? Like that's why it works. It's because we are trained in all of these things. And to be honest with you, there's no room to be nervous or scared in those types of situations. Like, and if that's who you are, this isn't the work for you. And that's what it is.
I think another thing with home birth midwives is that you have the opportunity to decide that this person is no longer a safe person, safe candidate to stay at home. And so you refer them to the appropriate providers. So that eliminates some of those situations that could arise. So that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
What do you all, oh, go ahead, Cindy. You're gonna ask.
Oh, I was, yep, just to follow up, with PR or L'Oreal. So how do you decompress and prevent vicarious trauma and compassion fatigue? Because I'm sure it gets pretty intense.
I would say just peer review is a big thing. There are always gatherings that happen. If there's any trauma that happens at any birth or any situation that kind of like deviates from the realm of being normal, we are always sitting down and talking about what we could have done different, why this felt like this, what are we feeling? And like we as midwives, like we love our clients, right? And there have been times, right, where we like transfer clients to the hospital and we never hear from them again. And like I'm brokenhearted because I'm sad. And there is like trauma for us and there's trauma for our people. And it's really just communicating with your peers, having situations like this where I get to speak and like communicate and share space with other beautiful Black birth workers. That helps to decompress and get rid of all of those things. But peer review is a really important thing that I feel like everybody should be doing all of the time. And it's really helpful.
It is helpful, and I totally agree. And I think just kind of discussing what happened with someone who understands. So having a person, a mentor or a colleague or someone that you trust who, you can kind of share the situation with. If I can share it one time, I'm usually good. I usually kind of, and if we need to kind of review it, debrief it, whatever. I also just want to point out that we do have, some patients who come in who were at home births and that wasn't working out for them. And I think I like put my hand up to go in that room first, because I know that they're going to be met with prejudice, and no matter what color they are, but definitely if you're Black or brown, and just sort of from the medical system, they're just sort of you getting what you had coming or whatever. I don't know the kind of crap they say, but anyways, I say I had someone come in last week who had a problem, and I said, I'll take care of her. I got it. And I'll let you know if I need you to intervene or be involved or whatever. And so, and I've advocated for them when they've come in and the, so automatically they're going to go to the resident staff, and then they'll say, oh, she needs a C-section. And I say, well, does she really? Like, maybe we could just try some Pitocin or try something, anything that would get her not to be able to have a vaginal birth and not just go straight to the OR. And they're like, okay. I give them the reasons why I think this could work. And then they say, well, all right. And I've even to the point where I said, these people are family in the case of Black folk. And so I would appreciate it if you would do this. Those people aren't my family, like by my blood. They're not my cousins or anything, but they are my family. And I feel like they're going to not be done well if someone isn't kind of standing up for them and not tolerating all that backbiting talk that happens at the charting area or wherever it is. I have a hard time with that. So yeah, putting a stop to that as well. But processing, definitely processing. I've been blessed to not have had, negative outcomes. I don't even like saying that. Ooh. Because I feel like something's gonna go haywire. Yeah, I just, if it's something, the close calls, then yeah, you have to bring it out, you have to process it. And I also want to point out that it's a common practice in the white community to conceal things. And that is, I feel like that's not taking good care. There needs to be transparency, there needs to be shared decision-making, and concealing things from one another. If they made an error, then they don't want anyone to know. And I see Lucinda shaking her head. And that is, I don't know, that's sort of like a weak level of integrity for me. And I feel like you talk about it and learn from each other, but they see things differently, so.
If I could kind of like double down on two things that PR and L'Oreal said. L'Oreal said, she talked about the importance of peer review, like peer spaces. And for a lot of Black student nurse midwives, especially at Yale, that is either psi or nothing. That's ENT, or that space doesn't exist. So not to like fangirl too much, but I really can't iterate the importance of this community and this space enough, because for a lot of Black student midwives, it doesn't exist anywhere else in Connecticut. And then to reiterate like PR's point, I think a lot of the culture, from my minimal experience, this is my very first, I'm just now starting my labor and delivery shifts. This is my very first hospital. All my other births have been at home births. But what I noticed is they don't debrief. They don't do what PR is saying. You know, you have to talk through those traumas. So in the back of their mind, you know, if they just came from, you know, a hemorrhage and they're, you know, clearly shaken, they keep that energy inside. And that is a culture, that I have experienced, is like perpetuated on L&D. And when that happens, right, that energy, you know, we as midwives, we talk about energy, spirituality, you know, a holistic, we're people, right? And when you keep that energy inside, that is going to come out and it's going to affect other patients. And that's what I see in hospitals enough. So when we talk about these hospital experiences and doctors not listening, they have a culture of not remembering that they themselves are people. And you have to debrief, you have to take care of yourself. And I don't see that happening in the hospital.
They will take their trauma and use it to take care of the next person. And that's not where it belongs. It will color or influence your treatment of that person. And that is a different situation and it doesn't belong there. And so I just have issues with that. Until they start educating in the medical schools and in the, you know, until they start making this this part of caring for the whole person, caring for the woman of color, caring for, it's just like many elements. It's not gonna end. I mean, you know, there are those of us who kind of work with it, but or try to work on teaching, but it needs to be at the core curriculum, just like anything else, or you're not doing a good service to the women that you're caring for. Honestly, some of them, they act like they hate women. So I don't.
And that's what I want to say. I think it's easy, Ashley, for them to do that because they don't care about the person they just left. They don't realize that was someone who could have lost their lives. So it's not so much they internalize it, because if they internalize it, they would break down. And you see, they don't break down. They keep right on to the next. So if they did really even care about the person they just left, then they would have to do something with that energy. But if you don't see that person again as being human, then you could keep on moving. And I think that's what makes us different as nurse midwives. And that's why we do have to have that support system so that we can talk about the patients that we care for, that we have an outlet, we could get some support in that peer review. Because the same thing happens in GYN care. You have that patient who you have to tell she has an infection. You have to tell her she has HIV. You have to tell her she has herpes. You have to tell her that she had a miscarriage. All of those things build up. So you do need that outlet of someone that you can talk to. And I just want to say, when I worked inside in the hospital setting, you know, I always trusted my instincts. And as midwives, we have to trust our instincts because that's all that we have sometimes, that there's something in us that's telling us, check that woman, something's going on, or that woman's about to have her baby. You ever have that woman that's about to deliver and everyone's like, oh, she's not in labor. And then you go in the room, the baby's crowning and you deliver the baby because there's something there. And the reason why I left the hospital setting is because I was in an environment that was causing stress that I couldn't tap into that. So when I couldn't tap into that, I said, it's not safe for me to practice because then I'm not only putting myself at harm, I'm putting the women at harm. So again, you have to make sure that you trust who you are and you learn so much. Like what L'Oreal said, you learn and you know what you know, that you don't get scared. But it's when you have other forces coming in that take away from that take that energy away. Mm-hmm. And I'm just gonna say this, the women those nurses at the front desk that be running their mouths, they need to shut up. Mm-hmm. Somebody needs to go in there and just clean that whole desk out And until people are accountable, those kind of behaviors are just going to keep coming. And the way they talk about women is disgusting.
Mhm.
It's disgusting. And
I think it's important to speak up to that. And that's anyone who's worked with me knows that I have no problem speaking up to it. I just say something. I'm like, why? Either I present an opposing view or I say, why are you saying that? I just put them on the spot. Like, that's mean. Do you have to be that harsh? Or anything, whatever way people, you have to function in a manner that makes you comfortable. But I guess after doing it so many years, I'm like, I could tell you whatever I feel like you need to know, and you need to know a lot. And one of those things you need to know is to stop talking about people who you feel superior to. They are not subordinates, you're subordinates. They're not lesser than. Shut up.
And despite everything that you all just shared, so many women still feel like giving birth in the hospital is the best, the best route to take. And for some, we know that's needed, but we want to talk about the safety of out of hospital births. L'Oreal and Taylor, can you share, can you speak to the safety of out of hospital births and what those options look like for those who are looking to birth outside of the hospital setting? And then what has your experience been as a student at the only freestanding birth center in Connecticut also?
Paris.
Paris, yes, sorry.
So I am, I'm new at the birth center. I've been there since February. And when I started, I had worked in Greenwich Hospital on their labor delivery unit, and it was white. There was no color at all. And so I'd experienced that, like just not even being able to come out to the nurse's station and feel comfortable because I don't want to talk to y'all. It's not just a racial thing. It's just, their views and my views were very different. So when I started at the birth center, I was a little hesitant at first. I didn't want to have the same type of experience, but the major difference was transitioning from the medical model to a midwifery model. And I found being there that I really enjoy it. Obviously, there's still the cultural differences. I feel really good when I do, which is rare, but when I do see a Black or Hispanic family or someone who's not white coming in, it's like, oh, okay, I'm glad that I can be a different face that you see. But I think because they are midwives, at bare minimum, I can connect with them on that level. I'm a student, I'm learning so much. And a lot of them have experience in the hospital. If something isn't looking right, they'll transfer over to Danbury Hospital. So they still have to have, the medical background. They have to have that type of a brain. But when we're at the birth center, it's like day and night compared to experiences I've had in the hospital. It's take your time, let's try different interventions. The families typically, they know that this is where they're birthing, so they've done their research. They're typically more prepared, more educated about, what it takes to birth at a birthing center, what your body is going through. Just because something hurts doesn't mean something is wrong. A lot of them even transition from OB care to midwifery care, like with their pregnancy. And so it's really nice working with families who are, it's like, this is what I want for our families. This is what I want to see us, like, being aware of the natural, normal physiologic processes of birth. They accept it, they understand it. And I love to see it. I would love, love, love to see more color on the staff, just because, we deserve to have people who look like us take care of us as well. It's still a little bit of an obstacle for me, just in terms of opening up and really forming those professional bonds, which is, I know this has been iterated plenty of times, but that's where communities like this are so important, because like Ashley said, I don't get this at school. my school is online based, so our networks are very limited anyway, unless you are like really on top of staying in touch with people. But I don't typically, outside of ENT, I don't communicate with Black birth workers. So thank you again for this space. Working at the birth center has been night and day compared to working in the hospital. I definitely would love to experience a birth center or any type of birthing center where I see Black families having these great outcomes and like popping a bottle of champagne or whatever is, you know, safe, because they just had a happy, healthy birth that wasn't like steeped in trauma and being mistreated by the nurses or the CNAs or the doctors. We deserve it too. So that's been my experience.
Absolutely. L'Oreal, can you speak to the safety of home birth? Because I know that when I was experiencing pregnancy and decided to do home birth, people were like, is that safe? That's like a big question that comes up for people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's anytime we have like the naysayers step in on the home birth or have something to say, they're always like, well, what if there's a cord wrapped around the baby's neck? You know, it's like all of these things. It's just people just don't know. So really, as a midwife, I'm as hands off as I can possibly be. My job isn't necessarily to deliver someone's baby. I truly feel like the mother or the father or the birthing person should be like the first person to feel their child come into this world. I'm really there just to foster and hold space for these people and to monitor the space, really. So when it comes to home birth, right, we come to your house, we have our big old bags full of stuff. We have our medications that we need. We have our oxygen if we need it, which we like never do, knock on wood. We have our resuscitation equipment. We have all of the things that we would need in the home birth setting that are like within our scope of practice, if you will. But it's when it comes to safety, it's really just educating people and telling people, and kind of like what Paris was saying is the education on physiologic birth and how that works, and telling people, you know, like if you bleed, this is what it looks like, and this is what you like to expect, and this is what's within the realm of normal. This is what's outside the realm of normal. When it comes to home birth, we're constantly checking in with baby. Listening to the baby is the only form of communication that we have with that baby and how they're handling labor and birth on the inside. So we're always there listening to baby, checking in, really listening and see like how they're writing things out. Are they having decels? Are they having XLs? Like where are they having them? Like how are they, what's their baseline? We're constantly thinking of all of these things. And just holding that safe space for people. And we really are educating our parents as well ahead of time, so they feel empowered, so they feel like they can take control and they know what's happening. I used to, you know, when I first started doing this work, I would show up to someone's house and I'd be setting up like my resuscitation tray, and I would like try to hide my ambu bag. Like I would try to hide everything. Like it was like this thing that nobody needed to see. And then I had this training and it's like, no, people need to see this. People need to see that we're actually equipped with all of this equipment that can save mom's life, baby's life. I mean, dad, if he's going to pass out in the corner, like I got you, you know what I mean? Like we got to be prepared for all of these things. And if we feel like it's not safe, that's when we go to a hospital. Our goal is to preserve, like, yes, home birth is great for everyone, but the goal is to have natural, unmedicated vaginal birth. And if that cannot be facilitated at home, we go to a hospital where people need a higher level of care. And that's not your average person here. And it's definitely not your average person when you have midwives like us involved, because our care is so different. Sorry, I'm getting a call from a mom. So it's really just educating people and letting them know that like our training is in birth emergency and making sure that everything is going okay. And if anything steps out of the realm of natural and normal, then we go to the hospital, and that's also okay.
I also think to give the hospital side from what I have seen is also important. Nurses at a hospital watch monitors most of the time. Instead of looking, so, L'Oreal is saying, I communicate with mommy, I communicate with baby. I am watching you and I pick up all of those signs. But at a hospital, hospitals are preparing for lawsuits. So like L'Oreal is saying, like, I am preparing for an emergency. Hospitals are preparing for lawsuits. So whereas a midwife, a home birth midwife is spending, the majority of her time, those 8, 9, 10 hours or however long, watching her patient, nurses have to chart everything. They are charting all night long, everything. And a lot of times the same information that L'Oreal gets from watching a mom, those nurses don't see, they can't see it because they have to be next to a computer charting what they see from this, fetal strip. So I'm not trying to demonize the hospital, but I'm trying to give as much information about why the hospital is the way it is and how so many little different pieces make this culture that has created the hospital culture that we know today.
Just to kind of add to that, I think there's a misconception that without all of the machinery, like huge industrial machinery that they have in hospitals, that midwives are showing up with nothing. Like, if we don't have a machine that can do this, if we have a Doppler, a handheld Doppler, we don't have a full electronic monitoring machine. So there's already just a belief that one is better than the other. And we have this Doppler, but it's not quite as effective. It's not quite as good. You can't quite get as much information as you could if you had this full, strip. If we're lacking, these medications, we don't have medications maybe to augment labor. So we have nothing that can help, move things along if that were to be needed. So yeah, I think that's one of the biggest reasons why there's a huge misconception about midwives being unsafe and hospitals being safer, is because we have less stuff. But they don't understand really that maybe what we lack in equipment and in structure around us, we make up for that in knowledge of our person, knowledge of the person that's sitting in front of us, and in being astute and not having all of that to rely on as safety nets. You have to be aware and on it and paying attention and not relying on just these machines or just what the numbers are telling you, but having a full picture. We may have, it means your skills are sharp. Exactly. What midwives may not have in equipment, we make up for in sharp skills. And I think that's really important for people to start understanding.
Taylor, I think it's important also for people to, especially students, to understand having all that equipment can cause you to make the wrong decision. And so that's something that it is important to bring to the conversation. And the two other points I wanted to make is that the majority of women who give birth could do so anywhere, at home, in their comfort of their room, in a woodshed, wherever they would choose to do so. It's a small percentage that would need all that other stuff. And so, and then the third point I was going to make, is that those who do choose to go the home birth route are also folks who seem to be more advanced in their shared decision making and wanting to take responsibility for how they're not turning over their birth experience to whoever's taking care of them. They're heavily involved in the birth experience, and they feel responsible also for how it comes out. And I think that those are kind of some important points. And that's not to say people who have to go to the hospital aren't invested like that. But I think that those are just the main one is that all that equipment, if you don't know how to use it and how to get use the information that you've got from the equipment, because sometimes you don't need to do anything despite the information. And in hospitals, you know, that's where I work, that's where I choose to be. But intervention is the name of the game. And so, and perhaps not for me or Oni or whoever's doing that, but certainly that's the culture. And you've got to get going, or we've got to do something. So I think that those are, and then you wind up doing something that shouldn't be done.
Yes, and I just want to say that, oh, sorry.
I was just going to add to that, that you mentioned, you know, the care that people receive. You know, I was actually reading a study that for an assignment that I had to do that says that people even who do transfer to the hospital, if they were planning a home birth, that when they get to the hospital, they receive more evidence-based care in the hospital for their birth than those who were planning to give birth in the hospital from the beginning. So even if the home birth doesn't work out, because of course home birth is not a guarantee, you know, it sets a whole nother standard of care that can carry even in a transfer situation.
Yes, but and think of the education that women get who's planning a home birth, that she's working with her midwife. Think of all the education she gets, that if she does have to transfer to the hospital, there's already knowledge and education she received, so she can advocate even for herself better. But I just want to say that it's a myth that hospital births are better. I'm not saying that hospital births aren't good, because I've had some good deliveries in the hospital. But when you look at our history, to say that the hospital was safer was a way to help eliminate midwives, Black midwives. Right. So it was an old game that they played, that you go to the hospital is going to be safer for you. And if you look at the history, when they started saying this, it was actually more dangerous, especially for Black women, because how they were performing C-sections on us. And part of that was still experimentation. But even among white women.
Marion Sims.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Yep. So I'm saying that's that history to get the Black bodies into the hospital. So even to this day, we know it's not true, because they have all this technology and the woman can still die, you know, or that she could come close to dying. So it's this myth that they put out there. And again, I feel like in the hospital, you could still have a safe birth, but it's about how you're treated in your care. What's the experience of your care? Do you have a provider that's talking to you, educating you? Like someone was saying earlier, that the providers are holding stuff from people. So you are there with preeclampsia, you're about to die, and you don't even know that you have preeclampsia. You think everything is good, that this doctor likes you because they keep coming in the room, when really they're trying to cover up maybe something that they missed. And I'm not saying that's all the situations, but I'm just saying that there's this dishonesty when you go in, and that's where the problems lie. So you got to have a provider who's really there and invested in you. And again, that sees you as a human and wants both of you to have a safe passage in this process. So, but again, it's all about the care. You can have all that technology, but if you're not providing actual individualized care to that patient, you're not doing her, she's not benefiting from being in the hospital.
Right. And this is to the home midwives. Is there a point in pregnancy when someone would not qualify for midwifery services? And this is, I'm just going to put it all out, and then you all can answer. How late can someone transfer if there is room for them, and what would they typically need to have available for you to review?
Yeah, I can, there's, oh my gosh, there's so many things. I just wanted to touch on a few more things about the safety of home birth. So going back to that real quick, as quickly as I can, we do develop a birth plan. So in the event of a birth emergency, usually around 36 weeks, we sit down with the birthing person and their absolute entire family and any and everybody that's going to be present at the birth. And we discuss things like in the event of an actual emergent transfer, it's do or die, life or death at that point. We calculate which is the closest hospital, how are we going to get there? Are we calling 911? Is that going to take faster than us driving there? We do all of these things. Also, for people that live out in more rural areas, it's good. We do talk about calling like the fire department that's near you or the police department that's near you and letting them know ahead of time that you are planning a home birth. And that just adds to the safety of everything happening. And then also, you were speaking about the prenatal care. We're constantly checking in with our clients. I see my clients all of the time. They have complete access to me during business hours, but like they have my cell phone number. If they have questions, comments, concerns, if something's out of the realm of normal, they have access to me as a person and their care provider that they don't necessarily have with their OBs or other people. They have to call during business hours and everything like that. And then when it comes to, clients having to maybe transfer out of care because it's no longer safe, we're having these conversations with them. One thing would be like screening for gestational diabetes. We have time to work with people. And if it's something that cannot be controlled with diet, lifestyle changes, exercise, and stuff like that, then we switch over to more of like a collaborative care where we're working with people, with other care providers to help get any health issues or concerns under control. And if that cannot be controlled, then yes, we have to transfer out. And then our level of care for you just looks a little different for your birth setting. Maybe it means you're having your baby in the hospital, but we're still there by your side as much as we can be. It's hard with COVID, but we try our best, and we'll be your doula at that point in time. So that does happen. I don't know if that answered the question completely, but yeah.
Yep, no, it does. It answered. Do we have anybody else responding to that regarding the home births?
I don't think so. I think we can move on. So an article was published in the Journal of Midwifery and Women's Health, and it was called "The Impact of Racism and Midwifery's Lack of Racial Diversity." It was a literature review. And it pointed out that interpersonal and institutional racism are significant problems in clinical, educational, and professional settings, and also act as barriers to further diversifying the profession. So we want to know from Ashley and Paris, or Taylor, or even L'Oreal, the first Black midwife in Connecticut. What are your thoughts on that? Or should I say the first Black home birth midwife? Did I say that?
You're good.
I think y'all know what I meant.
That's real. It's huge. I went to midwifery college in Bridgeton, Maine. And I feel like this is a topic that I talk about really like quite often with my colleagues and other Black birth workers and birth workers of color. It's not a safe space for people to be in. It really isn't. And, as soon as I brought my concerns up to the school, that's when I started having problems with the dean, with the academic advisors and everybody, to the point where it was either I get kicked out of the college or I leave gracefully. There was no happy ending for the ending of my education. And it really had to do with the racism, the nepotism, their biases. I did my thesis work. I had to do 2 thesis works. The first one wasn't good enough for them. I talked about, oppression and racism and its effects on preterm birth for Black birthing bodies. And that wasn't good enough for them. They were like, the research is there. We don't know what to do about this. So my second thesis work was, okay, like now you've actually pissed me off. I'm going to tell you what you can do about it. I came up with an entire curriculum coursework that they can do for Black students that they're welcoming into their program. Different people that could come teach cultural competencies to their staff. I came up with a resource guide for the Black students coming into their school, places where things that you don't think about going to school in Maine, right? Where the hell can we get our hair done? What restaurants can we go to where we're not going to be given mugs that say get out? Where are the safe spaces that we can go to? Where are there advocates, counselors, therapists? Where can we dance? Where can we buy food? Like none of these things were thought of in the college. And they had this program where they're trying to welcome in all of these Black students and have this culturally diverse program, but like not actually doing the work. And it was really challenging because the dropout rate was significant. I think they welcomed in like 10 Black students for one cohort and only one made it through. And it all has to do with the staff not protecting the students, not wanting to listen to us. I was denied scholarships for midwifery diversity, being the only Black student in my cohort because there weren't enough Black people in Maine. So there's so many biases that these like hippy dippy, earthy, crunchy old white midwives have and embody that it's like they should be aware of, but they're really just not, which is crazy to me. And it really holds us back. I almost stopped my birth work because I fell into such a deep depression after leaving the school. I thought that all midwives were terrible people, like truly. I thought that I would never be able to find community because these were the people that I learned from. And I ended up leaving the school because I did not want to fund their lives and give them any more of my money. Until I came to Connecticut. I came back and I found some midwives who are just about that life and want to support Black birth workers and Black birthing bodies. And it's changed my life completely. So it's a huge thing. So again, Sayana, I just want to thank you so much for holding space for all of us because it's given me life again. And I like my purpose is back. And now I'm kind of like back with a vengeance. Like I'm just like here to do the work and like give it hell, really.
And we need people like you for sure. Can any of you speak to how you find balance with your family and your social life in this birth work field? Because I know it's not easy.
Can I say something real quick about the racism? The racism is real in nursing and midwifery. We're not supposed to be here. That's our history. When nursing education started, even though on the Middle Passage, you know, when I'm in white spaces, I have to tell people what the Middle Passage was, but I know everybody knows what the Middle Passage was. I'm going all the way back to slavery. We were providing nursing care and midwifery care from the trip all the way here during slavery, even until this present day. But these programs are like, they believe that we can't be educated to be nurses. There's actual documentation where people were like, Black people cannot be educated. They don't have the intellectual capacity. And there's still people today who have half the knowledge that everybody in this room has, but yet they're accepted to nursing school or they're accepted to their midwifery program and they fly through when others, we're twice as smart as them. We work harder than them and we're still given those challenges. And the reason I say this, because I see it with my own eyes, that is alive and well, and that we have to break and disrupt those systems because they're just continuing. They're continuing, just like Black women don't feel pain. We know that's not true, but it's continuing in our society. So I just feel like we got to disrupt those services. And right now, that's my goal, to stop the racism. It probably won't happen in my lifetime, but right now, while I'm alive, I'm coming for you. If you want to try to give people a hard time just for being, no, not in my presence, not anymore. So I just say that because it's alive and real. And that, again, we have to support. When we hear someone wants to be a doula, when we hear they want to be a midwife, a nurse, we got to be there to support them as a community, because people are trusting that we're going to isolate ourselves and they're going to just treat us any kind of way. If I could be here all night to tell you the stories. All I want to say is that it's alive and well, and we got to show them that we're not going to keep taking it anymore, because they have the system to back them up. So not only am I coming for them, I'm coming for their systems too. And so I may be calling on some of you to help me because I can't do it alone.
You know, we out here.
We gotta disrupt that, because it just makes us miserable. And they go home, they do their trauma, they cause all this trauma, they go home and eat dinner and have fun with their family and kids. While we're up with hypertension and diabetes and we can't sleep at night. You know, we're doing two, 3 theses. We're trying to please them. They're never going to be pleased about racism, but they're going to have to hear about it. So I'm just bringing this to attention because it's such a barrier for us. It's not because we're not smart enough, it's because we have the system coming at us and we got to disrupt those systems. So I have to tell you, I've been doing it and it's working and I'm just going to keep on doing it. But just like for anyone out there who wants, their dream is to be a midwife, a nurse midwife, doula, there's people out here that are going to support you. So please just keep that in mind, that you have a home and you have someone that's going to help you to make it through. You don't have to do it alone.
Absolutely. That's the absolute truth. I wanted to ask, for your particular field, can you just tell us what the income potential can be for a midwife? Whether it's a home birth midwife or a CNM, can you just give us some of the parameters about that?
Can I hop on this one for a second? So there was a study that came out on, I think it was ACNM, that said that nurse midwives, this kind of goes back to the last question, that nurse midwives was a financially accessible solution to our racial disparities in maternal morbidity. So, you know, that you can get this degree, this graduate level degree, to, you know, contribute to fighting this problem. Nurse practitioners, nurse midwives, I think it varies across the board. You can look up like the 2019 demographics report that ACME did. It wasn't ACNM, it was ACME, and it kind of gives the range. There's some midwives that make over $1 million a year. I think it's like, there are more midwives that make over $1 million a year than there are that make 750 to 999.
Where are they working?
I know, it has to be California. It has to be California. But so the average is around 100,000 to 200,000, 150-ish, that range. But this is one of my like biggest pet peeves, right? You have to keep that in relation to the degrees that you have to get. So yes, you are making $100,000, but you also had to pay for either an entry to nursing program like I did, foolishly. Just another plug for ENT. Ask these Black women how their experiences were at these institutions. Do not, our wallet is the biggest activist that we have. I will never regret, like I will never stop regretting empowering this institution to perpetuate more racism with my money. So yes, you will make 6 figures probably, but you have to pay back that undergrad degree, that RN degree, and that grad school degree. And then you have to remember that there are only so many programs that have that grad school degree. So Yale is, this year, graduate entry program is around 62,000. Next year is 40-ish, 45,000. The year after that is about 40. So the average graduate amount of debt here at Yale is around 120,000. You know, if you, I'm researching this topic right now for another report that I have to do. But if you look at how student loans affect Black families, a Black family after 4 years of graduating will accrue, because of interest, they will owe 12.5% more than what they borrowed. Whereas a white family will owe 12.5% less. So just the fact, right? Like, yes, you will earn more money, but just the fact that you had to get that degree has already kind of created an imbalance in that playing field. Be smart about who you give your financial, who you empower with your finances. You know, talk to L'Oreal, talk to Sai, talk to Taylor, and ask them like, yo, these programs, you know, who should I be, you know, supporting? Because I can say like, regretfully, but I am empowering racism with my money. That is what happens when you go to an institution, especially an Ivy League institution. So how do I fight that, right? I am into like alternate streams of income, because if I'm not, I'm experiencing those same things that L'Oreal is experiencing, where like they try to threaten my voice with like academic like consequences, right? So I cannot depend on my midwifery income to be my sole source of income, because then they literally buy your activism. They buy your voice because they know you have a family to feed. So they're literally, you're going to be quiet or you're not going to work here. You're going to be quiet or you're not going to get this degree. Honey, this is not my only check. You're not my only source of income. So you're going to hear my mouth. You're going to hear what I'm going to say. Black women are dying. My people are dying, and you're perpetuating it. They don't want them problems. They don't want that. That paycheck is not worth it. It's not. It's not worth your voice. It's not worth your freedom. It's not worth your health. It ain't.
Yeah, I see a lot of conversation in the chat. Yeah, this conversation is very, very real. And this is what we're saying all the time when we're talking to people. This is how real that this can get. And yeah.
Yeah.
Emma, what do you have to say about that? Oh, I'm glad you're jumping in.
So yeah, I mean, I think just looking at midwifery education in general, we have to remember that, like, and goes back to the racism, the elimination of Black midwives and the colonization of midwifery education. It wasn't like oops, like we're just trying to help people and this happened in the meantime. Like there was a very intentional creation of barriers for Black midwifery students. And so most of the institutions, unfortunately, are upholding those just blatantly. And then there are some who are realizing that they should not continue to uphold those things. And so you see, there are some midwifery programs who, are making an effort to, I don't want to say diversify, but to really understand the impact that their curriculum has on whether or not they're creating safe providers for people of color. And so that's one of the reasons that I chose MCU. MCU is, an organization that is, of course, primarily white-led and historically, but they have a commitment to anti-racism. And so there are multiple like anti-racism courses and things that, they're very vocal about. And so they tend to attract, that student body anyway, people who are interested in that. And then we still get the students who really weren't thinking about, they just wanted to, catch babies. But in the meantime, they're going to get like this, and I mean, I'm only in phase 2 of the program, but, it's nice to sit here and like, hear your teacher, like, wipe your white tears and get to work, like we need educators that are doing that. And so I'm grateful, to be at an institution where, it's not perfect, everything, they're still white, but at the end of the day, they're trying really hard and they're putting in, tangible things. We have, instructors that are, quick to stop flipping the plate. It's quick to have these conversations, with these white students of this is what you need to do to be a safe provider. This is what you can't, like, this is what we're not going to do if you're going to go to this school. And this is what, we stand for. And so I appreciate that. I hope that that becomes the standard. I mean, what needs to happen ultimately is for midwifery education to be brought back to Black women, for us to be the leaders who are the ones running these institutions. I mean, it seems like a distant dream, but it's important, I mean, these schools really have to understand that they're selling something back to us that they stole from us. And for that reason, they have to understand how important we are to this field, for them to even be doing what they're doing. For these schools, the school that L'Oreal went to, for them to even be doing what they're doing, it had to be built on the backs of Black women, whether they have Black women at their school or not. So I think looking for these institutions and supporting these schools that, have that mission and have that concern in just as a core principle, then we can then go into those institutions and help make it better, help add to what they're trying to do as Black women without, just feeling like we have to go in here and see this place that's broken and try to fix it because we need more Black midwives. So it's, you know, goes back to what Ashley said of like, you know, where you put your money and where you support when you're looking for, you know, training. And if you are somewhere where you don't have to do MEEK accredited, your options are even more open for midwifery programs that are led by Black women, that are, you know, led by women of color, Indigenous women, people who are, you know, doing the work for real versus an institution. You have that option. A lot of places, you know, we're confined to MEEK accreditation and things like that to be able to practice where we want to practice, how we want to practice. But yeah, we using our dollars to support the institutions that are supporting us is definitely has to be a priority. Okay.
You
I
know,
just want to touch on one thing. Oh, sorry.
This is a quick point. I went to midwifery school 30 years ago. Well, maybe a little more than that. I graduated, I think, 30 years ago. And they denied me any scholarships. They had me in loans up to my eyeballs. And there were other classmates of mine who were fiscally much more well off than I was, who were getting outright scholarships. And so this same mess here we are 30 years later, and y'all are still talking about the same games that are being played. I came out with a lot of debt that my classmates did not necessarily come out with. While I was in school, I had kids. I already had kids. And so I had, you know, all those responsibilities, and I had a partner, and I had a home, and it was sort of like, how are y'all what are calculations based on? Skin color first. That's what it was based on. Because I actually went to people and said, what are you getting? And what did you say to get that? And I'm just really disheartened that this many years later, the same game is being played. And you're totally right, L'Oreal, Ashley, whoever, all of you who made the point that you are paying an institution, you're buying back what someone took from us. That being said, I felt like I didn't have another route to do the work that I wanted to do and that I felt called to do. So they kind of got me in a place, and I've maximized or tried to maximize the work that I'm doing consequently. But I'm really grateful to be in this space with all of y'all and hearing you talk. I've learned a lot of things, and I hope I've been able to share some wisdom. Thank you.
Absolutely have. So somebody said they want a whole nother hour. We're already after 9 o'clock. We're not going to be able to stay on for an hour, but we do have just a few more questions. And I think y'all answered some of those in just that short moment. But one of the things that we wanted to talk about is the fact that midwifery is not for everybody, right? So like in the doula world, we see a lot of people who want to be doulas all of a sudden. It has now become a trend, and people don't even really understand what that means. Like, what is that really going to look like? You go and you train with a white organization for 3 days, and you pop out and you think that you're going to go back to your community and actually be able to make a really big impact on the population of people who live in your area, where that white owned and designed organization was created with the white middle class married woman, who is the majority of the doulas in the country, in mind, right? It wasn't created with you and your community in mind. And so now we see the same thing kind of happening with like midwifery, right? People are just like, oh, I want to be a doula, I want to be a midwife. And so, you know, our grand midwives say that midwifery is a calling. And we saw it on the video. They talked about it. We hear about this all the time. Is there someone that you believe should not become a midwife, who should not pursue a career in midwifery?
Is this for anybody?
Anybody.
Sleep
Look, y'all all want to jump in.
If you want to
Paris,
sleep,
you go
night,
after Taylor.
If you need your sleep, don't do it.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, if you're not a night owl. No, but really, I think if you want to be a hero, and you want to just center yourself, you know, like
Yes.
If you want to be a hero,
It ain't about you.
And you just want to catch babies, and you want to feel that oxytocin and that adrenaline rush, and you want that birth high, you know what I mean? Like, that's not it, you know, because you have to be dedicated to these people that are not you, and that really you don't have anything to do with their decisions. You can't be more invested in somebody's birth than they are. They have to have this home birth. Now you're making them run up and down the stairs 11 times. Just let them, you know what I mean? Because, you know, it's been 3 hours and you got to go home and you're in a rush, and you know, if you find that you center yourself in your interactions with people like that, it's not for you, because
Midwifery just ain't about you.
It's not about you. You have to be able to really separate yourself from these people and still care for them so deeply. Like, you have to be able to do both.
Paris?
I think also for the ones that don't want to go to medical school for 10, 12, however many years, and they say, oh, midwifery is a fast track to OB. It will get you in the same field-ish, but it's not the same thing. Midwifery, you have to respect the profession, and too often we see people who don't, and that's why people are confused about what midwives do, what we're supposed to be able to do, because you have people who really just want to be doctors, practice in the medical model, and completely, you know, midwifery is old-fashioned. I got through school, my 2 years, I'm done, I'm here, and let's hang every drug known to man to get this baby out. So if you don't respect the profession and you doing this as a shortcut, reconsider. It's not about you. It's not about what you want. Ultimately, you're serving the community. And if you can't do that with integrity, don't do it at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I would say, oh, go ahead, Ashley.
I'm seeing, it's not a trend, it's not new, but there are a lot of midwives, particularly academic and / or white midwives, who have this burning desire to experiment on or research or study Black women, and then they will like stop at no cost whatsoever to do that. You know, there's so many Black women who are saying, hey, it's racism, not race. It's racism, not race. And they're just like in one ear, out the other, because they don't care. They have the research they want to do. They have the studies they want to see, and they do it regardless of who gets hurt or what the people who they're trying so bad to study on have to say about it. I think midwifery really needs to start trending away from that, calling it out like aggressively, and saying we're not going to stand for this anymore.
And I would say, if you don't like women, don't go into midwifery. If you don't like Black people or people of color, do not go into midwifery, because we're everywhere. If you don't like to listen, if you think that you're smarter than everybody else, don't go into midwifery. If you're coming in thinking that, like Ashley said, you're going to come in and save everybody because they need you, don't go into midwifery. Just cut it out.
So we see a lot of medical students who are going to school because their parents want them to go, or they can afford to do so. And those are definitely not the people that we want touching Black bodies.
Absolutely. Thank you all for those answers. We are going to wrap it up, but we have one final question for everyone. And we kind of want to know, what are some of the things that you all are working on over the next couple of years? And do you have any, final last words or advice for anyone who would be interested in pursuing the field of midwifery, or who would be looking for midwifery services? We can start with Lucinda, since I see you first. You could take that question.
Yeah, I would say, if you want to become a midwife, nurse midwife, do it. Don't let anybody tell you that they can't, especially someone who doesn't look like you. Don't let them tell you that you can't do it. I'm not saying it's easy, but again, you can have support, but don't let someone discourage you especially people who don't even know you. Don't let them discourage you. There's a way that you could get to your goal I've seen nurses, even midwives, they had trouble in the beginning. I have nurses who say, I didn't like math, I didn't like science, but they got it. So I'm just saying, please don't give up. If that's what you want to do, do it.
And what are you thinking about working on over the next couple of years?
Oh, for me?
Yeah,
Oh.
that's the second part of the question.
Oh, sorry. Over the next couple of years, I'm just going to keep doing anti-racism work. I'm going to keep finding ways that, Black women could be safe during childbirth. I want to, I think we keep talking about the numbers. Let's talk about solutions. So what can we do to keep people safe? And my other goal is to start holding people accountable who are putting women in harm's way.
Thank you. Can we hear from Ashley? I see her next.
So I think for the next few years, I'm just going to grab on to ENT and just sponge up everything while I'm for my time here in Connecticut, however long it may be. I still have 1 year of didactic, 1 year of clinical. And, I just learned about Black centering and racial concordant care from the Black Maternal Health Conference 2 weeks ago. And this is that's basically what we're doing tonight is we're centering Blackness, and we're talking about providing care that does not treat Blackness so harshly and so negatively. So I think, honestly, I'm going to take what I learned here tonight and figure out how do I continue to center Blackness in my as I learn how to be a midwife, because I'm not a midwife, I'm a student, and I'm trying to determine who I'm going to be and what that looks like. So yeah, I'm just for the next few years keeping my cup empty so women like you can continue to pour into it, because I really don't like the drink that I'm getting right now, if I'm being honest. So just being more intentional about the energy that I allow to pour into me, and being more intentional about who I allow in my circle and in my space.
So you kind of gave some advice a little bit earlier to those who might be seeking education. Do you have anything else you want to add on?
I think my biggest regret, if I could tell, that Ashley, hey, this is what you need to do. If you are getting into this work because of the racial disparities in maternal morbidity, then center that more than I did, right? So I came to my school because I didn't want to take prereqs. $1,000, $2,000 is why I chose this program. Be more intentional about who you want to be, and prioritize what it is that you're trying to prioritize. And I think that's going to shift the programs that you look at for education. So for example, I noticed that Jenny Joseph put out a study, asking like why people wanted to be midwives and the barriers that, that they were facing. If you notice, the school that she worked with was University of San Francisco. If you look at the places that are doing a lot of like Beloved and Embrace and all of these like Black centering group perinatal care, it's San Francisco. If when you look at the dramatic decreases in maternal morbidity, it's California. So do more research than I did. You guys were talking about like Taylor was saying, like, don't be a hero. Like, don't try to, like that was me, I wanted to go to Congress and I wanted to be like, these laws are messed up. We need to, this is what we need to do for home births. This is discriminatory. This is rooted in, sexism and misogyny and racism. And that's why I came to the school, and look where that got me. Right now I am at an Ivy League trying to take care of Black women. That is a sentence that just does not go together, right? And you really don't realize how deeply it doesn't go together until you're in this space and you see how deeply embedded white supremacy is in every single practice, in every single thought process and system, and everything. At white center, white supremacy is the forefront of every single decision that happens here. Be smarter than I was about your education. Be more intentional. You know what I mean? Learn from the mistakes that I made, and take advantage of this community. Black centering is literally saving lives. The research is really interesting, racially concordant care. So that's what this is. So dive into it. Don't let it go. Hold on and cling on to it tight, because this space right here, this is what's saving lives, and this is what's changing national statistics and disparities.
Wouldn't it be amazing if more HBCUs had midwifery programs?
Yes.
Like, let's start getting that back. It's ours, right?
I like screenshot that and like sent it to all my FAMU friends. Like, we're bringing this back. We're going back to FAMU.
Paris, did you share what you have going on for the next couple years and any advice you might have?
Yeah, so if I could piggyback off of both Sai and Ashley, when I started looking for midwifery programs, that was the first thing I looked for. Was I wanted to go to an HBCU. I missed the opportunity for undergrad, so I was doing it, and I was so surprised to find none. But if this is the path that you choose to take, if your heart is in it, do it. Don't let anything stop you. Don't let any of the perceived barriers hold you back. That's what they're there for. They want to prevent us from entering this space, but they can't because it's inherently within us. But also, do your research. Ashley, it sounds like we might have been in a similar boat. When I first started, I started at New York University, NYU. For me, it was like the name, the prestige. Oh, this is going to get me into all the doors. I was young and I was dumb, and I transferred out after a semester and a half because I realized how deep I was getting myself into debt. $80,000 for their program, and I was going to walk away with. It's crazy. So I messed up because I was already 2 semesters in, so I already had all of that debt, but I just wasn't feeling the quality of the education. I didn't feel like y'all were really speaking to me. And this was in New York City. So definitely do your research, understand what's important to you, and, look at your finances. Us having piles of student loan debt is just another way to keep us down, and it's not necessary. It's definitely not necessary. So that is my advice. If you want to do it, make it happen. Just find alternate ways to finance your education. For the next year, for me, I did finance with student loans, but for the next year, I'm going to pay out of pocket, which means a whole lot more working for me. So I'll be focusing on finishing up school. I have another year left, so I should be graduating by July 2022, and just working to pay for it. After that, or really even through that, I do want to work more with ENT, and like I want to get my hands in it. It's great working at the birth center, but again, that's not my community. So I drive an hour to Danbury when we have families here that I could work with and definitely be a part of that. So, but my biggest thing is y'all, please just watch your pockets. Don't let these people drown you in debt.
L'Oreal, did we hear your upcoming next couple years and any advice?
Yeah. So my advice really would be don't stop. If you want to do this, there are going to be many things that test you and challenge you, whether it be people or situations or distractions or what have you. And you know, I feel like that's Great Spirit's way of testing you and seeing if you're really made out and cut out for this work. Don't do this work if you're the faint of heart, you know. If you don't like driving at night, if you don't like driving in terrible weather, if you're literally not willing to risk your life to get to someone's home to welcome their baby earthside, don't do this work. I'd say get yourself a good car. That's like, if you live in New England, you need a good car and some good tires and all-wheel drive to get to people, because there's no snowstorm or rainstorm or highway being shut down that's going to stop you from getting somewhere. Like this, there's nothing that's going to stop you from getting to be with people. And I want people to really know, like I've talked to a lot of people and I see a lot of, like, in the midwifery and doula groups on Facebook and everything, and they think that birth work is like rainbows and bunnies and like cupcakes and shit. And it's not. Like, it's really not. I literally almost died coming home from a birth. I was up for finals for 3 days. I was out of birth for 2 days, and I rolled my car 5 times and landed in a ditch after I fell asleep. And that did not stop me from doing this work. And it's like, if you are not willing to risk all of that for this, you do not belong in this space. That's how dedicated I am. This is birth work. It is activism. We risk speaking to our clients. We risk getting pulled over at 2 o'clock in the middle of the night on side roads with no lights, with cops and no service and no way to call people. Like, you can't do this if you don't believe in it. And if you don't believe in Great Spirit protecting you and guiding you through this, like, that's just what it is. And for myself, the next few years, I just want to continue to educate, and, hopefully we could be able, like, to facilitate, Sayana, like, we could facilitate spaces like this so we can continue to build our community, because we really need to do this. Nobody's going to do it for us. And we are the only people that are making actual changes. You look at the numbers for Black birthing bodies, and they're worse than they were before the Civil War. Like, it's terrible. And we are the people doing the work. So continuing to build community. I'll be working on conscious conception soon, which is great. And hopefully I'll get to, like, bring my baby to births and show them and show other little children and help really shift what birth looks like and welcome in that new wave of being, and shifting the consciousness around birth as a whole, and really making it a space where people are really intentional with how they welcome their children here into this world. I think that's my ultimate goal, is being intentional with how we welcome people into this world, and playing a role in that. And I'm so grateful because everybody here is doing that work already. So I'm just, like, imagining what it's going to look like when we're all, like, old as hell and our grandkids are delivering babies. Like, it's gonna be a thing. So I just want to keep holding on to that image and pray for the best.
Pamela, is she still on? I can't see everybody.
Yes, I'm still
Okay.
here. Let's see. I kind of forgot the question, but
So what
people have been saying, I think if it's something I don't regret, as much as Yale costed, and how sometimes they did try to eat away at my soul. I don't regret going there, because I did get the tools that I need to do the kind of work I wanted to do. And I think that that's important. If you decide that you want to do something, I wanted to take care of our people who are high risk, and I didn't want to leave. Those sisters don't deserve to be left behind. And they may not, typically are not candidates for, you know, for a home birth situation if they have some major medical problems. And so they deserve our kind of care too, and care by people like us. So I think that that's really important. Figure out what your intention is and stay focused and like do it, because you're going to benefit our community regardless of which way you're going with it. And you're going to, you know, that'll lift us up as a nation of color. There will be barriers. And so watch out for those kind of landmines, and don't let them like tear you down and make you quit. Like if this is what I always say, that I was called and I'm doing the work. Just say it's a detour. It's not, don't let it stop you if you are really for this, to be in this work. And I would just caution everyone, watch out for your family and your relationships that you have, like with your partners or with people in your family, because it's very easy in this work to get caught up all in this, and it's very time consuming. And in being time consuming, you then sometimes leave a void for your family, for your children, for your partner, for other familial relationships that you might have that are important to you. And I think that that's like, try to take the kind of care you take of your patients, do the same thing because that'll feed your soul. If you're like, you know, and your partner has to buy in, because otherwise it doesn't work. So yeah, that's pretty much it. What am I doing in these next few years? I don't have a lot of working years left, and I'm spending it fighting the fight. The situation that we are in culturally and in society right now, it really ticks me and everybody else off. But for me, this is an opportunity, because people actually are listening who weren't listening before, who didn't. So every event, I don't want it, and it makes me tear up even just talking about it, but it's opening doors. And I'm like, well, you're gonna hear me now, because what's going on and how y'all are killing us, it can't continue. And I feel like even 10 years ago, folks weren't even open or willing to listen. And so I'm just going to keep fighting that fight, fighting the fight.
And we appreciate you doing that work. We have 2 more panelists that we want to get their responses to. Taylor, can you tell us what you have coming up in the next couple of years, and any advice you might have for midwifery students or those who are looking for midwifery services?
Yeah, so for me, for the next couple of years, I'm going to be trying to get through this program. I'm coming up on somewhere near halfway, 2 years down. So it's a little over a 4-year program. So it's a lot. The course load has gotten a lot heavier. And, you know, I moved across country recently, so I'm back in, you know, my home state, but I'm looking for a new preceptor. So working on that, and yeah, just educating people. And I've gotten involved with a local collective. Like L'Oreal said, midwifery is activism. And like one big reason why I was like, when I felt the call to become a midwife, I was even more like, yes, because it was like, this is an opportunity for me to reach people who really need help and who really need, you know, support and people around them to help build them up. And so, yeah, I'm looking to get, you know, just involved in any way I can with organizations that are working with, you know, people who are very marginalized. I mean, of course, Black women, but incarcerated women, homeless women, you know, people who really like need to be built up. You know, I feel like, you know, they say like you're only as strong as your weakest link. Like, not to say those people are weak, but we need to elevate them in order for our society to get where it needs to go. Like, people who are at the bottom need to be lifted up. Like, so that's, you know, like my end goal. If you're considering midwifery care for yourself, I recommend looking into a midwife for well person care. I get a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm definitely going to look into a midwife for my next pregnancy. And it's like, don't wait, just go, look, see who's in your community, see if there are midwives in your community that offer well person care. And, remember that your visits, especially your initial visit with a provider, is you interviewing them to see if you want them for your care. So feel free to go have a checkup with this midwife. Doesn't work out? Okay, maybe you need an STD screening, find another midwife who can do that, and start vetting these providers before you're pregnant. Because when you're not pregnant, you have all the time in the world until you get pregnant to find someone who aligns with what you need and what you want and is safe for you, versus you just start looking after you're already pregnant. That clock is ticking. You need somebody that's available for your due date. You need somebody, you have limited time to find someone. So that's my advice for anyone who is considering midwifery care. Don't wait specifically to conceive, to start, looking into that and finding out who's in your community. Oh, thank you, Lucinda. For students, I think, I think of Salama, who, is in the video we watched earlier, and like talking to her, I had a chance to, get to know her a little while I was living in Atlanta, and she talked about how, it was like this call and, she kind of ignored it and was like, whatever. But it was like, it never relented. She could not get away from being a midwife. So, if you really feel that call, and it's really heavy on your heart, then like L'Oreal said, you have to have faith that you will be protected to get through that journey. And you kind of just have to, put your head down and get through it, because you're needed out there. That call that you feel is, it's not your imagination. Like our ancestors are telling us that we need to get back to this work. So, if you feel the call, like follow it. It's hard. The journey is hard, really, no matter what educational path you choose. It's hard and we tired, but what else better thing could you do with your life? That's how I feel. Like, what better thing could I do with my life, So yeah, that's my advice. Just do it anyway. Look for a school that is really fitting in with you and what you need and the credential that you want to have and all that. Like, find a school an institution, training, whatever, that really aligns with your values, because there's a lot out here that are not built on what we're built on. And they don't move like you're going to want to move when you are out practicing. So find that and run with that, but don't give up. The time is going to pass anyway. I know when I was even considering going to midwifery school, I went to college straight out of high school and did terribly. I was like, wow, like I'm not good at this at all. So, the idea of going back to school to get a whole degree was like so daunting. And I was like, oh no. But can you get him? But there was a big part of me that was like, these 4 years are going to pass anyway. Whether I chase my dream or not, they're going to go. And now 2 years are gone like a napkin in the wind. I don't even know what's been going on for the last 2 years, but so yeah, just follow it, go with it. Like, it's hard, but you're needed. And, if the call is on your heart, go for it.
Thank you, Taylor. And lastly, Lucinda, can you tell us what you have coming up in the next couple of years and any advice?
Okay, I went already, but that's okay.
Oh, you did go in the beginning. I'm sorry. Okay, so did I get all the panelists? I think so.
Yeah, but I do want to say I really needed this tonight. It's just good. I'm so glad, Sayana, you decided to put this together, because I think that we need spaces like this. So I did want to thank you for that.
We certainly do. I thank you all for being here.
Yes.
You're awesome.
And Queen Cynthia too. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. We're gonna wrap up now. Oh, don't we have a couple of links we want to share?
We do. Let me see if I can get it back up. Did we show this slide already? I don't think we did.
We did.
Okay.
Yeah, we did.
So just some midwifery organizations. And if you're registered, you'll get an email so you can access these websites if you want to look further into what midwifery looks like. And then, of course, how to keep in touch with us. So our website, you can follow us on Facebook or IG, and we have hashtags, Earth's Natural Touch or Dada Zori. And if you or anyone that you know is in need of lactation support or interested in learning about breastfeeding, whether they are pregnant or nursing right now, then they can email us and we'll get them registered for the Mocha Milkshake Cafe. I Can IVS. And the Mocha Milkshake Cafe is a weekly support group that we have every Saturday morning at 10. So if you're in California, that's a little early, but it's 10 o'clock for us on the East Coast. And any last words, Sin and Koya?
I'm just overwhelmed by the participation, and thank you all for hanging with us. We thought, oh gosh, it's going to be for a couple of hours. We had all these questions that were answered by our illustrious panel so eloquently, and just being a fellow birth worker, I am so proud of each and every one of you. This has just been a joy, and it's a lot to keep me up past 8 o'clock. Sayana will tell you.
Thank you, Sin. Way past her bedtime.
Way past. And spread the word about Mocha Milkshake Cafe. We are so proud of our group, and that is a very unique space for Mocha moms. So yeah, we're here, and we're glad that we are continuing collaboration with so many of these lovely sisters, and some whom I've had a chance to work with and talk to, and others that I'm just being introduced to tonight. But yeah, this has been great.
It has been. I just want to say, first, thank you, Sai, for entrusting me to be a moderator for this panel. I enjoyed it so much. This was my first time moderating, so I hope I did it justice. Thank you to all of the panelists for your wisdom and sharing all of this information with us. It is so needed. Shout out to all the Dada Zuri sisters that are in here. We appreciate you. I love y'all so much. And I think that's it. This has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you, everyone.
It has been amazing.
Yes, thank you guys so much. This was great. We definitely needed this.
We're recharged.
Yeah.
Taylor and I start classes on Monday, so I think we needed this.
Definitely.
We're doing the right thing and we're making a difference, y'all. I'm so glad that all of the participants are here. We didn't think that many people would register because it was kind of last minute, but we had almost 100 registrants. So we are definitely making a difference. Your wisdom that was shared tonight is going to touch somebody some way and help them along their way. So thank you so much. We know the life of a midwife is crazy. You're on call, you're not getting much rest, but you're here with us. So we definitely appreciate that. And we hope to communicate with you all soon. All of you participants, keep in touch with us so that we can keep you posted on what else we have going on.
Yes.
Everybody have a good night.
Peace, everybody.
Can I just say one thing?
Oh, yes. Go ahead, Pamela.
To the students, if you could, let me see, how can I get you to get the information? I would love to host some of the students on our podcast. We did do an episode on a student who was a gay Asian male. And, that's, I don't like to label people like that, but that was sort of, he sort of addressed, the elements of being in school and being a man, midwifery school, being a man, being Asian, being gay. I would love to have some sisters come and talk about the student experience and what they would want to see for the future. So if I could share.
Please put it in the chat. I saw that y'all are back at the studio, huh?
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
We have a new season. We're just about,
I saw that. I have to listen.
4 episodes out. It's good. It's better. I mean, not to that you and Cynth were awesome.
We get better with time. That's the goal.
Yeah. It was really, it's been good. And so I would love to have some of the wisdom of the students, because I have found them wise far beyond their years, and have you come on and just talk to our audience about how the experience is different. Just like you did, you know, but in our own way, how the experience is different. So
PR, can you tell people how to find the podcast? I know it streams.
Yes, it's on.
I put it in the chat, but I didn't put like the links.
It's in iTunes, it's on Spotify, on iHeartRadio, any of those kind of forums, or where you get your where you listen to your podcast. And it's called The Midwife Crisis. And it's also called the Midwife Crisis Podcast. But this is the part where I get mixed up. But for emails, that name Midwife Crisis was already taken. So that's why we're called the Midwife Crisis Podcast at gmail.com. If you want to send me your information, if you think you would be interested in coming and being our guest, that would be really amazing. And ¿qué más quería decir? Yeah, so and we're on Facebook, on Instagram also, Midwife Crisis. So look us up, please. That's not a shameless plug. I just feel like we could.
I had already plugged it, so go ahead, plug away.
No, but you can help us in terms of trying to address this intersection between women's health and you know, and race and culture, everything, and sexuality, gender. So I want y'all.
It's a great podcast. Please go listen to it. You'll enjoy it. You will not be disappointed.
And we would love your input. Okay.
Yeah. Can I clarify the email? Is it the Midwife Podcast, the Midwife Crisis Podcast?
Yes, at gmail.com.
Thank you.
Ivy's already subscribed. All right.
Great. Make sure you check out our doula episode. Sai and Cynth were amazing.
That was fun. We had a good time. We always have a good time with you all. We just love y'all. Any opportunity we can get, we trying to like get connected, as busy as we are.
Yeah.
But you just keep us going, you know, it keeps things like spicy and alive. Because school can be so draining, and it's like, and even like, you know, just finding that tribe, you know, Earth's Natural Touch has just been such a hub for so many of us to get support. And then with school, like Taylor is like my go-to. That's like my study buddy. We're on the phone like for hours every day, like, you know, just going through our schoolwork and stuff like that. And I honestly don't know where I would be without y'all. Like, everybody is like so amazing that what would I do without you? How could I be here without ENT and we call us the Get Fresh crew at MCU. So like, where would I be? Like, I probably would have dropped out of school a long time ago, because it is just that difficult and confusing sometimes. And sometimes you just need somebody to kind of bounce things off of and kind of talk to about certain things, which we talked about earlier, right? Like that peer review, or when things happen, I'm like, yo, let me tell y'all what happened. You know, because they're the ones who are going to actually understand. And for us as Earth's Natural Touch, the doulas have that same type of support. So we're just grateful, very grateful for you all. And it's great to see that some of our doulas are moving on into midwifery and studying to become midwives. And so we're so excited for them, just to see them like continue on. And soon we'll be having parties to celebrate. So yeah, we're excited. This birth work, you know, you gotta love it. Even if you try to get away, you gotta love it. Exactly, Koya. That's right. All right, Cynthia's ready to go. Y'all see her? So we gonna hang up now. Because you know, I could go on and on and on, but we are gonna hang up now because Cynthia's ready for bed. So
We got a lot of stuff to do.
Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you so much. We appreciate y'all and love y'all.
Have a good night.
Hey Maya, we see you calling from Germany. Love you, Dada Zori.
Peace, everyone.
Hi, y'all.
Peace, y'all.
It's like 4 a.m. here. I'm like,
Oh,
Oh, wow. Thank you for coming.
thank you. It was great. Thank you.
Peace.
Peace.
Blessings, everyone.
Take care. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.